radical feminist who also seemingly hated people of other races, I guess.
No, it's pretty damn clear. Like, oh, I'm confused because like feminism is like lefty, but like racism our thing.
12 school trying to learn exactly what led up to this tragic school shooting that happened just a few hours ago. We've learned that police got the call right before 11 o'clock this morning. Still unsure how long it took them to get to the school, but by the time that they got to the school, we're told that the shooter was already dead. Of course, we've learned that 3 people have died in this incident, one including the shooter, 1 teenager, and 1 teacher. This is a K-12 private school. We also have learned from the police chief that no metal detectors were at the entrances of this school. He also said that he does not know if a school resource officer was present because they're not a Madison public school and things operate a little bit different at private schools. The police chief also told us that the shooter, who has not been identified, age, name, gender, nothing like that, but we did learn that the shooter.
Don't let that get in the way of a good narrative. The right already went to painting the shooter as trans immediately, because it appeared at some point she had changed her name or went by a different name than her birth name. So immediately they're like, oh, nice, we can go with that narrative. And yeah, without evidence to back it up, once again decided they would use this as an opportunity to target trans people. I'm sure everyone here knows the stats on this issue. There has been very, very, very few mass shooters who are in fact trans. Statistically, you are more likely to be a mass shooter if you are a cis person than if you were a trans person. You are also more likely to be the victim of a shooting or an act of violence if you are a trans person than if you are a cis person. So that's just the reality, but it didn't stop them from trying that at first. It didn't work because information about the shooter came out. I'm not going to be revealing the shooter's name. The reason for that being in that when it comes to school shootings, they're usually inspired by one another, and you know, the propagation of their fame is what inspires the next mass shooter to commit another one of these horrifying acts of violence. This is unusual in that it was a woman. It was a cis woman who committed this act, which is not as common, obviously, at all as when men do it. And so the next narrative that the right had to try and push, which Libs and TikTok wasted no time on, is feminist. The Madison school shooter complained about the patriarchy and wrote that every single male must be wiped out, from babies to the elderly. Only then will women be free to create the new world. Leftism literally destroys lives. Leftism. The leftist, because you think feminism equals kill all men. Well, I can understand if that's what you think feminism is, then it would be hard to read this whole situation. It would be hard to understand it if your worldview is so just fucked up that you're like, so feminism by definition is just the act of killing all men, right? That's what feminists believe, that the only way to smash the patriarchy is to smash every single man. That's what they believe. Is that a thing? And then it's like, no, actually. Do you think all the men who call themselves feminists, all of us are just basically like, yeah, we're just waiting for the purge? Yeah. I mean, as a feminist, a proud feminist, I'm essentially sitting back and just waiting until the purge takes place. And yeah, I accept it. That's part of what being a feminist is, essentially, right? This is, yes, a sad situation involving someone who was heavily radicalized online, someone who followed far-right accounts, neo-Nazi accounts, Groyper accounts online, insofar as their social media, presence shows, someone who's being identified as a member of the femcel community. If you're unaware, femcels, obviously the feminine version of incels being involuntary celibates. Incels are men who believe that they are owed sex and that women are denying them sex. It's hyper misogyny. It's usually hyper violent as well, which is unfortunate. And it obviously, is based on a worldview that has taken an extremist form of misogynistic beliefs. Men are supposed to be the dominant gender on the planet. Patriarchy is necessary, and that there has been, unfortunately, a stealing of your birthright is part of it. And the unfortunate part of the incel community is that the majority of women that they are after are usually traditionally what is considered to be attractive-looking women by societal standards, either in their schools or online or whatever it is. And those attractive women are being taken by Chads. They call those women Stacies, and all the Stacies have been taken by the Chads. That's part of the entire incel index. Now, a lot of incel communities have been shut down online for very good reasons. They are often violent, and they're often inspiring one another to commit acts of violence, mass violence, in order to, again, become martyrs of their particular cause. They get really mad when other members of the community, especially large or prominent figures, go out and actually end up in relationships. They consider those to be betrayals of the involuntary celibate movement. And obviously, the femcel movement is its own specific thing. It's different. And you can see that the violence enacted here, as per, the words of the shooter, were done so in a way that they wanted to enact mass violence upon all men. I guess being the opposite of what usually here when it comes to people who want to commit mass violence against all women.
New details about a shooting inside a private Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin. A teacher and 2 teenagers were killed, including the accused shooter. 6 others injured when another student opened fire this morning.
Our Charlie tomorrow is live near Abundant Life Christian School in Madison. Charlie, we now know.
It's kind of confusing, not gonna lie. Like, a lot of people, I think, have a trouble analyzing or reading it, especially like the Joe Rogans of the world, because Joe Rogan's solution to the whole thing is like, well, why don't you just all hire sex workers? Like, just hire a sex worker, boom, problem solved. I mean, all these dudes, and that's not it though. At its core, it is also, like I said, a hyper version of violent misogyny, where their entire worldview has been turned upside down. Like, some people are surprised sometimes to find mass acts of violence by incels not being done by some kid who would be traditionally what you consider to look like a nerd or something like that. Like, some of the incel mass shooters have been conventionally attractive looking people who still felt like they were involuntary celibates. Now, there's a lot of reasons why someone might have difficulty meeting and talking to and or having relationships with women at their school or at work or wherever they are, trying to meet people. And because it's such a complex, long series, like, on its start, I think people who are buying into patriarchal and gendered stereotypes, of which are, yes, just reinforced from birth. A lot of us do buy into a lot of the, the idea that men are supposed to be protectors and providers. Women are supposed to be caretakers and empathetic and providers for children and do domestic duties, while men, do physical labor outside of the house. That dynamic, expand upon that until you get to the point where you get a percentage of the population who go further down, say, a manosphere rabbit hole, and they're taught even more extreme beliefs, and those beliefs surrounding the fact that if you're doing those things and you're still not succeeding, well, that's because there are people who are stealing your birthright. They're taking away your rights as a man, and those people happen to be feminists. Those people happen to be wokes and woke scolds. Those people happen to be social justice warriors who are distorting and warping and changing the very idea of what it is to have your divine right as a man. And that can include people that they feel are part of gender ideology or part of the radical trans agenda or the woke mind virus, whatever it is, who are, again, distorting the system and taking away their right to take the things that they feel are owed to them. Why it is a violent form of hypermisogyny is because no one owes anyone else sex, and no one owes anyone else their attention or their friendship or love or a relationship. But because they feel that the world is structured that way, or that they feel that they are owed a system like that and they aren't attaining it, they then turn to more and more isolation and more violent means, which unfortunately can enact itself in mass shootings, mass acts of violence, that kind of shit.
Oh, the shooter was a 17-year-old girl.
Joe and Erica, an incredibly emotional day now, evening here in Madison, Wisconsin, as you can imagine. Where we are now, it's about a half a mile away from where the shooting took place at that Christian school. And this is a reunification center. It's at a medical center across the street from here. We've seen students and parents reuniting here throughout the day.
Sounds like all criticals have been moved. They're still clearing the building.
A harrowing day after a
One host of the Red Scare podcast, Anna Ketchian, says, hate school shooter timeline making memes out of a child who ruined her and other children's lives makes you realize how scarily out of touch everyone is with basic humanity. And now this will keep happening because the more you allow yourself to become a meme creature, the more out of touch you get. And this is also a picture of her with none other than Alex Jones. So, yeah.
18-year-old girl opens fire inside a Christian school. In the end, another student and a teacher would also be dead. The shooter would apparently take her own life, as police say they did not fire once as they arrived on scene. Now, 2 others suffered life-threatening injuries and 4 others were also hurt tonight. The motive remains a mystery.
I don't know why, and I felt like if we did know why, we could stop these things.
I can tell you, this hits you in the gut. Our community is better than this. Our country is better than this.
My daughter goes here, and my nieces and nephews, my sister. So she called me on the phone. She told me, please remain calm.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of things going on here, but I mean, the underlying point remains, and that's that evergreen onion fucking headline, you know, nation where this keeps happening, questioning why this keeps happening. When you compare it to, you know, by ratio of the population, other nations, say Canada, or say Australia, or New Zealand, or Finland, you know, why do they not have the same rate of mass shootings that the United States does? And the answer is quite simple. It's easy access to guns and firearms. In this case, the shooter, I believe, was given a firearm by one of their parents, which means I believe the parent might be criminally complicit in this shooting. But you know, the right will always use this as an opportunity to be like, oh, I'm so sick of the gun conversation. Every single time this happens, all of you want to bring up the guns, the guns, the guns. And yes, absolutely. It's kind of like I'm so sick of, you know, every single time someone goes, you know, snowboarding without protective gear and they injure themselves, and you keep wanting to talk about the protective gear over and over and over. And it's like, well, yeah, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of factors that play into this. And obviously, I too would wish that Americans had more access to mental health. I wish that Americans would address the crises that are befalling them, including vast amounts of increases in depression, anxiety, isolationism felt by youth, and that includes both men and women. In this case, like, you know, we speak a lot about the male loneliness epidemic, but there is also clearly an epidemic of, you know, young women who feel isolated or who feel ostracized by society, or who look for all kinds of answers online and can be radicalized by people in that space. I wish that there was obviously more seriousness taken on by social media and tech companies towards a lot of the purveyors of mass violence who frequently you know, will post commentary with white nationalists or far-right radicals who can indoctrinate people. I wish that was taken care of. But at its very, very core, it's not as if this is going to stop acts of violence in the United States if you, say, had firearms licenses required, but it certainly could reduce, if you had a federal firearms program, the amount of people who have direct access to guns. If in order to own a gun, you had to take gun safety courses. In order to own a gun, you needed a gun license. In the same way you need one to drive a car. I don't think that's an incredibly unreasonable thing. That's what we do in Canada. It doesn't matter where you are in Canada. It doesn't matter what province you're in. If you want to own a gun, if you want to use a gun, you need to have a firearms license. You need to take a 2-day course. You need to get your license. That license needs to be renewed. When you get your license, they not only do the background check, but they also have to get the approval of your ex-wife or your ex-spouse in order to reduce the amount of people who are often the victims of gun violence, which happens to be women who are ex-wives and ex-partners. All things that help reduce the amount of people who will die from mass shootings. Countries that don't have large access to firearms still have acts of mass violence. In Japan, they have mass stabbings. That does happen, but they have way less mass shootings. So again, it doesn't matter like how you want to tackle this problem. or how you want to analyze it, well, we need to look at this as a mental health issue. This is clearly someone who had severe mental health problems. We have to look at this as a radicalization issue. This is someone who was clearly radicalized online by far-right figures. They followed white nationalists. They followed groypers. There's that. We have to look at what exactly is the femcel community and what exactly are the incel communities, and how do we tackle that and their proliferation in private discords and stuff like this. Yes, but at its core, it seems time and time again, mass shooters are people who have the ability to access firearms. And in some cases, I don't believe this is one of those cases. I believe this was a handgun. But in some cases, it happens to be with weapons of, mass death, where, you have AR-15s or other weapons like that, where people are capable of committing acts of carnage on a much larger and more rapid scale because of the weapons they have. But don't let that get in the way of the right trying to, again, change the narrative.
And furiously, it looks like we now know the identity of the individual that carried out.
Why are you happy? Like, why would you start this by being like, hey, everybody, do we have an update for you? Apparently, this was a radical feminist.
About the cowardly act today, and certainly the mainstream media is going to have absolutely no idea what to do with this. Joe Biden, of course, is already calling for, infringing on America's rights. We don't know anything other than earlier today, I was one of the early people to discover an X account seemingly linked to this individual who seemingly left a long document that...
No, you weren't. So many other people who were trying to look into the social media history of the shooter were able of uncovering their social media history. You saw someone else post it. Now you're trying to be like, I was actually one of the first people to discover the social media history of the shooter. It wasn't at all because I saw Libs of TikTok posting so-called manifesto, but whether or not that's confirmed, I mean, I can't say.
Explained what they did, but they left it password protected, which means we're probably never going to get the alleged manifesto, apparently, if this is the account. Now, all this is alleged, but Andy No is pretty good at reporting this. It looks like the individual...
Because I saw that Libs of TikTok had posted it, and then all of a sudden had CC'd Andy No, and then Andy No, I guess, has reposted it, because all of y'all have your narrative now.
The individual that carried out everything today was not a white straight male. In fact, it was a 15-year-old female. I can report that the individual that did what they...
I'm going to be blurring this out because, again, I'm not someone who likes putting the names of mass shooters.
Teen used the online name Sam, which is curious, and had on the username CrossXer. She had an extensive online obsession with these type of events and death. In particular, the 1999 incident even wore the same T-shirt, the KMFDM shirt that they wore. They were a big fan of KMFDM Rock Band, which was also referenced by one of those losers that did what they did in Colorado back then. Up now is on.
So this one, really reaching far and deep, just to be able to be like, I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but the band KMFDM, they are usually a band listened to by left-leaning individuals. I believe, I'm not totally sure on this, one of their songs is on a Matrix soundtrack. Shooter apparently went by a different name. That's interesting. Because, people who go by different names. Interesting there.
My friends identified the X account, which purported to belong to the individual. Soon after the news broke, after the event, the account's last post is of an OK hand symbol in the school's bathroom by the library minutes before the event. So here's the picture. Looks like they dressed all in black, just like their little, So this postal brand appears to be the actual account. This is the kid.
What does that symbol mean, Quartering?
A teacher and a student lost their lives. 6 others were wounded. Fired by fringe extremist online culture. A literal femcel. A screenshot was posted on X by a person who is her Discord friend. The account also posted a mirror selfie photo of the individual. Rubnow has a long and disturbing online history of being obsessed with this type of incident and using moniker. Rubnow's Cash App account is a picture of those losers who did what they did in Colorado. She had an account on, quote, Watch People Pass Away, where she commented on videos. Her Spotify playlist are featured themes of, destroying your own life and others. You could see here's a sneak peek of the Document, women are the only hope for this wretched world. But even women have been brainwashed by moids. I don't know what.
So I'm not going to keep playing him here because I think he's just going to read out the supposed manifesto. There's not actually evidence that it is a manifesto or that it was written by the individual who committed the shooting. If it was written by the person who committed the shooting, what it points towards is someone, again, with the vast amount of information that you have from their social media accounts. They followed a number of prominent far-right, white nationalist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and Groyper accounts. They were seen doing the OK white power symbol. They had posted frequently, apparently, about things related to femcel ideology, which, again, we're talking about a radicalized kind of white supremacist neo-Nazi shooter, a cis woman in this case, which is, yeah, less common, obviously, than mass shooters, especially school shooters for men. I think it's almost exclusively men. But don't let that get in the way of a narrative, because the name of this video is... The manifesto shows she was a radical feminist. It's a feminist. None of y'all know what feminism is. I saw Libs of TikTok trying to do this, and now I see you trying to do this. Everyone is trying to say, so the feminist, right? Because she hated men. That's what feminism is, I think. That's what I've been taught anyway. That's why I hate it. I hate feminism because feminism is about hating men. And it's like, nope, that's not what feminism is. It's not. She would be, by definition, a misandrist, someone who hates men. I'm sure you've heard a misogynist, someone who hates women. She's a misandrist, someone who hates men. A feminist is someone who wants to advocate for and fight for equality of all genders. That's why you have male feminists. I know that it's like a derogatory term, you know, it's like feminist, pejorative. And then right away it's like, oh, Justin Trudeau, the communist cuck, says that he's a male feminist. Yeah, pejorative. But do you think that means that Trudeau wants to kill all men? Do you think that means that Trudeau is just, again, waiting in the sidelines for the purge? Just hoping eventually it'll happen? Get past the manifesto.
That is nuts. That is, that's out there. Yeah, here you see cops say female did this. So a female, I don't think there's any indication that they are trans. I think that this is just...
No, because they're not. They weren't. They're cis. That's already been confirmed. I know, but the desperation oozing off all of these fucking weirdos just to be like, well, I mean, you know, different name. That's weird. She refers to black people as the N-word in that clip. Because, yeah, she was also what seems to be a radicalized neo-Nazi, white supremacist. Again, it's like... they're so desperate on the far right to try and paint every mass shooter as being LGBTQ+, usually trans, as being radicalized leftist, as being Antifa, as being some kind of violent feminist, as being like, well, look, leftism destroys society. Look at all these mass shooters who are all lefties. And they're not. More often than not, the profile of the school shooter is often a student who is struggling, depressed, usually very depressed, isolated, loner, hyper online, and sometimes going down radicalization rabbit holes. If they are going down radicalization rabbit holes, as this individual is, they're often along the lines of far-right extremist ideology, racist ideology, white supremacist ideology, and yes, incel or femcel ideology, which can play itself out in acts of mass violence, as you are seeing here. It's a very simple fucking equation. This is not a giant mystery. Like, yes, the individual's social media has been now exposed and looked through, and it paints a pretty clear picture of what the fuck is going on. Yeah, she apparently was 17. I'm not like, do not trust the Quarterine for your news or your analysis or anything really. Proper pissing etiquette. He is at the bottom of the fucking barrel for all of these topics.
A femcel.
And by the way, he's now looking at an article that says it in the fucking right there. I wonder if he'll course correct.
Radical feminist who also seemingly hated people of other races. I guess.
You guess? No, it's pretty damn fucking clear. Like, oh, I'm confused because, like,
feminism is like lefty, but like racism our thing. So I don't know. There's no way to know. This one's tough, guys. Oh, this real brain scratcher here.
6 more were injured. Of course, they did not. Their pew pew of choice was not they are. It started right at 11 o'clock. Let's see. We know it was confined to one space. I don't know if it was a classroom or hallway. We now know it was a library. Today is a sad day. So, of course, Joe Biden released a call for more control on Americans after this event. Congress must pass common sense. What exactly?
I mean, make no mistake, fuck Joe Biden. He's a gross-ass genocidal monster. But, yeah, this is the correct take. That it's not going to do anything. You don't have to worry. Your guns are safe, Americans. Ain't no one prying them from anyone's cold, dead hands, even children's. Because at the end of the day, it's more important that every single one of you has the freedom to be as armed as fuck and just to live in a hyper, even bizarrely sexualized gun culture where, that everyone who needs it has the freedom to be able to buy it at, sometimes without even background checks. If you want to go to a gun show, awesome loophole. You get in there and you bring some cash, and there's even examples where like fucking 11-year-olds have been able to buy guns just going to a gun show and saying they're picking it up for their dad and stuff like that. It's profoundly fucked. I mean, it's one of those things where I think a lot of the rest of the world just watches in horror, aghast, myself included, being a Canadian and watching this happen over and over again, and just sitting there like, I said after Sandy Hook that if this doesn't bring some form of large-scale comprehensive gun reform, then what will? What is it going to take? Like how? And the answer is it won't. And even if you do have moments in history where they do say pass an assault weapons ban, and then surprise, after doing so, the amount of mass shootings by assault weapons plummets, and then they remove the assault weapon ban, and it goes right back up, and it's like, well, it's kind of easy to figure this one out. It's not a mystery. Again, living in Canada, we also have some freedom, not the same level, I'll grant you, all right? I cannot, after getting a gun license, go out and buy myself a fucking AR-15 because I need that to really just take on the army of deer that go at me every day, or mooses, a fucking army of them, not just one. I have to fight 12 simultaneously, and a puma. I need to be able to kill them all, a wildcat and maybe a grizzly simultaneously. So I need that AR-15, all right? I need it. I need it for freedom, but I don't have that. So we don't have the freedoms that the United States does. But still, if you look at the amount of mass shootings in Canada compared to the United States, if you adjust for the population, yes, there's a much larger population in the US than Canada, but if you adjust for the population, it is dramatically lower than it is in the United States for a very clear reason. It makes sense. We do not have the ability for anyone who wants to just go into a store, be like, I feel like a gun today, and then walk out. we don't have that. We don't have gun shows where people are allowed to be like, hey, do you like my guns? I do. Would you like to buy one with cash? I guess. Are you gonna check out anything about me? Nope. I hope you use that for good reasons. Good luck. I hope you go out and it's some deer that you're hunting with all the weapons you just bought and ammunition. But get out there and go do it. Go do it and enjoy yourself. So yeah,
is common sense infringements on people's Second Amendment rights. This person obviously illegally had that weapon. They were too young. You have to be, I think, 21 in Wisconsin to own the handhelds. Again, I'm sure POTUS is considering a pardon for the individual who did it. We already passed every comment.
What? I hate this part of like so many of the YouTubers who just like, instead of like actually trying to analyze or give you a take on anything, it's like,
all right, well, now it's time to read the comments. Let's look at the blue check marks.
Here we have female student. Let's see if there's any new posts here. I mean, Wisconsin police have refused to release the age of the individual. I don't know. I don't really know why we can't have armed guards at schools. This school also.
I mean, that's where it's all heading in America. It's like you got an option. You could either have something, say like comprehensive gun reform, ban assault weapons again. And I know that's not the weapon that was used in the shooting, but you could do that and reduce the amount of deaths from assault weapons. You could have a system where you do a federal legislation in which every single person who wants to own a firearm has to have a firearms license, in the same way you already do that for driving. I assume that most people who drive aren't intending to kill people with cars, and yet still there's a system where your fucking freedoms are limited, Americans. You got to go out and you got to get a fucking driver's license. You need to take a test to show that you're proficient at doing that, because a car can be deadly in the wrong hands, in someone who doesn't know how to drive. So you got to go out and you got to get a driver's license. I know. It does limit your freedoms. It does. But it does reduce also the amount of people who simply die because people who have never driven a car before just get behind a wheel and be like, oh, this is freedom, brother. That kind of shit. So, yeah, you do that. So, hey, if you had a system where you can still have freedom, you can still buy guns, and you can still buy tons of fucking guns, and you can still have all these guns displaying in your houses everywhere, just so when someone walks in, they can be like, very nice guns. You have a lot of guns. I know. I love guns. It's part of my personality. I just guns everywhere. Guns. Don't you love guns? Yeah, look at all the guns. I had so many guns. Beautiful fucking sexy rifles and shotguns and AR-15s and all kinds of calibers. I got an M16 in the back. That one's a little on the down low, if you know what I'm saying.
So did not have, from what I can tell, any metal detectors or any officers on campus. Why did they hide the fact that it was a woman? That I don't know. This obviously goes very, very much against.
How did they hide it?
It goes against basically every trend. We'll find out in the coming days if this person was enjoying any SSRIs or anything like that.
I don't know. Yeah, the right just can't help themselves.
If they had been to therapy, I mean, they clearly had, if this is their account, it appears to be an obsession with these type of events. Wore the same t-shirt as those.
Yes. Wow. Fits the profile. It's kind of like an open and shut case in that regard. It's like, wow, yet another. I mean, the difference here being that it's a woman, but yes, yet another school shooter who was inspired by other school shooters, who venerated other school shooters, idealized them, who had a history of going into extremist communities online, participating in extremist communities online, followed white supremacist, groyper, neo-Nazi accounts, wrote extremely racist passages, talked about their profound and deep hatred of men and their necessity to have to kill men. Again, none of this is feminist. None of this is leftist. None of this is anything other than, once again, one of your fucking own has been hyper-radicalized online, and it's profoundly sad. It's profoundly sad that, again, because of a variety of reasons, there's yet another mass shooting, a mass act of violence in the United States where children have lost their lives, and people are traumatized and horrified. And at this moment in time, you can't pin this on trans folk. You can't pin this on leftists. You can't pin this on feminists. Not for lack of trying, but, I'm really struggling.
I mean, we'll see in the next couple days what SSRIs they were on, if they were depressed, or maybe if they were on HRT. Kind of weird that they used a different name, but still not sure what's going on here. They seem to be very racist. That's unusual for a feminist, but clearly a feminist, right?
The other school had an obsession with you had a morbid curiosity with terrible things happening to people. This manifesto is unhinged and bizarre. Moids and what was
yeah, again, terms and stuff that you can find within the incel and femcel communities. And yeah, it's something that's profoundly sad, but this was not trans people. This was not leftists. This was not feminists. This was not Antifa.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This independent series is made entirely possible thanks to our patrons. It was produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bohem, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, and Words Greenwood. Not to mention all the other patrons we now see on screen. We couldn't have done this show without you. If you can help support the show, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus secret episodes as well as get the content before anyone else.